All right, let's get this show on the road. Welcome to the Backyard Professor Live. Nobody's going to be here tonight. It's New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Eve. Everyone's supposed to be out celebrating, so I'm going to be talking to a blank wall, but that's all good. Oh, hey, there's people showing up. What are you guys nuts? You're not supposed to be wasting your time with me. You're supposed to be celebrating the new year. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. That's for you, Mark Crispin. Doug Vincent, Happy New Year to you too, my friend. All right, we're the only three here. It looks like there's a few people coming in, though. I am honestly surprised. This is going to be fun. It's cool. Um, I figured, New Year's Eve, what better way to end the year than by talking about one of the most influential books in the Western world, if not the entire world now, the Bible. And I've been kind of browsing through some various ideas, and I found some really interesting stuff from the scholars, of course, but I don't want to just do what the scholars think. We all pretty much know what the scholars think. We think we know. We don't, but it's fun to think we know. And then I wanted to get to John Q. Public and some of their perceptions based on what has been discovered for the last, say, 50 years in my lifetime. So, hey, Don Smith, thank you for coming in. Good to see you. I'm a lurking. Okay, you can lurk all you want. You are more than welcome to lurk, but do not shirk. Happy New Year, pretty quick. No, I'm not going to be here for Dan Vogel, John Q. Public. Pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve as well. So, okie dokie. What I want to do, I've been off making some shorts for my YouTube channel. I mean, the dumb dad jokes, man, it's a thing. What amuses me is how many people mistake what I'm saying as the joke. They think it's me. They think I'm really saying that about myself. And some people are really concerned, and other people are just angry as all get out with me. And how dare you say stuff like that? You're going to harm people, Oh, anyway, it's fun. It's all good. So, what I've done, we're going to have a good new year this coming up year. I think I'm going to do some more videos with our own Dan Vogel, who is now here in the audience, as well as with our own Doug Vincent, who is here in the audience also. Hey, Jordan Marshall. Oh, Magnus dominated the FIDE, didn't he, on the Rapid Blitz? Whoa, we are not worthy of Magnus Carlsen. Yeah, I'll be looking at some of those in my chess videos. I uploaded a live chess video yesterday, and then I did an analysis video and stuff. So yeah, that was Gadzooks. There's nothing like him. He is animal all the way. And you know what's crazy is it doesn't matter whether he does the blitz or the bullet or the rapid or the mega bullet. I mean, he could win in a 2-second chess game. He could checkmate his opponent or classical. I mean, the man dominates everything. It's incredible. So kudos to him. Yes, Magnus Carlsen, the man. And I'm making a sincere effort this year to upgrade my videos to analyzing more of the contemporary chess games as well. So, oh, Mark, that's very kind of you. Good grief. You are too kind. Jordan Marshall. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love making them too. Oh, I will. Thank you so much, Jordan. That means a lot to me. I'm very serious. I mean, I'm small meat and potatoes, but my core followers are really the cream of the crop, man, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I'll be doing a whole bunch more. Yep, you too, my friend. So let's jump on to this. I have a couple. Barry Richens, my man. I'm also going to have Barry Richens on my show again in 2024. More times than once. Thanks. Good to see you. Okay, be sure that you believe everything you say so that we learners can be well fed. Okay, fine. You want my opinion too on this subject, huh? The Bible. Now, look, it really is irrelevant whether you believe it or don't believe it. It doesn't matter. I mean, the pendulum swings on this subject are just outrageous, right? They really are. And it's really fun to compare the scholars with the John Q. public. I think the John Q. public is going to surprise us tonight. I know this is going to sound condescending. I don't mean it to, but there's no way out of this. The John Q. public that I'm going to go with, how do I say this nicely, are probably some of the more educated John Q. public. I'll put it that way, but they have some really interesting things to say. So, hey, Eddie Guerra, Happy New Year from Germany. Oh, Germany. Das ist ausgezeichnet, mein Freund. Ja. Jawohl, Herr Kommandant. Jawohl. Okay, so I've shared a screen. I've got a screenshot of a survey. Now, and I get it. This survey was a few years back. Okay, it's all good. I looked up all the way up into I have an article just published just 2 weeks ago on this same topic of the biblical historical accuracy and the biblical historical reliability on that subject. And so let's go to this survey first. Now I'm going to share the screen. Let me know if you can see this screen real quick, would you? Can you see this share? Not the idiot down in the lower corner. That's me. I mean the screen itself. Let me know if you can see that screen. Can you see it? I think you can. If I can, you can. So, hey, Patty Cake. Awesome. Woman of the Year right there. Okay, good. You can see it. Thank you, Doug. Let's see. Is this the historical accuracy of the Bible? Yeah. I've got a couple of different things that I'm going to share with you tonight. I have to switch over to this page, and so I can't see the comments. That's why I wanted to ask you real quick. Okay, so there was a survey taken. How historically accurate is the Bible? And these are the questions. If the Bible says it, that's good enough for me. And 15%, 3 votes said yes. That's what they go with. Another one of the historical survey questions was, there are miraculous embellishments, but it's all rooted in real events and personalities. And a higher percentage of people accepted this one, 26.3, 5 votes. And the third item is it contains a fairly equal amount of fact and mythology. 10.5% voted there. Or the fourth item on this is it may contain some truth, but should not be taken seriously by a historian. 31.6. The majority said that. And then the final item is it's complete BS, and astonishingly, 15.8 said that. And I honestly think they're grossly uninformed because it's not complete BS. No book is complete BS except a book that's written about BS. Hey, it's New Year's Eve. I can get away with crap like this, right? So we're gonna get this, yes. So really, Barry Richens is telling us that I was teaching sections on the Old and New Testaments in my World Lit courses. Oh, that is groovy. We may have to have you on the show, Barry. Hey, Chris Gordon, good to see you, my friend. Hot dog. Okay, so and this is not the big survey, okay? I've got another big issue. This is on the forum, the Historum. And this Historum, wow, these guys are good. I really enjoy this forum. So, and this gentleman who started the discussion said, I'm just curious to see everyone's stance on this issue. So he got some public feedback, and this is what really intrigued me. Let's see what a few of these guys say. Archaeology has proven that there are a lot of definite facts in the Bible, but of course, The events have been passed down by word of mouth, and the interpretation of why they occurred are religious. So it's best to analyze the information there objectively. Nevertheless, culturally, the Bible gives us great insight about humanity during those periods. We see the way people thought, integrated with one another, and they kept records. Now, that's an interesting approach. I resonate with that one pretty good. Here's another comment here. I voted for the fourth option. Now, the fourth option was not the BS one. That one's obviously, that can't possibly be correct. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one, it may contain some truth, but should not be taken seriously by a historian. That depends on what you mean by seriously and by historian. Anyway, this person voted for the fourth option, that the Bible may contain some truth but should not be taken. So I believe that parts of the Bible are based on real historical events. I'm with you there. But to varying degrees, it has been embellished and distorted. And we've got evidence of that. There's no question there. I think that's spot on. But other parts are complete BS. BS in relation to what? You see. Now, if history, what really happened, if that's the only objective, then you can throw this in that it's complete BS, some parts. But is that the only objective, not only from our viewpoint, but from the authors of the Bible themselves, see? So this can get nuanced, you know how it goes. And he said, notably the book of Genesis. Well, the book of Genesis is not complete BS in any manner if you study it from the Jewish Kabbalah perspective. And I do have videos, I've been threatening to make them now for years, from Leonore Leet showing that the book of Genesis is not supposed to be astronomy. It's not supposed to be about the nature of the universe, etc. There's a whole different reason why Genesis is set up the way it is, and it is stunning how Leonore Leet brings this out. So if it is BS completely from a historical viewpoint, I don't even know if I can accept that. So I think this is a little extreme. I'm going to take a more moderate tone for now. I will develop some videos on Genesis, and I'll show you what I mean. The Bible is certainly not a reliable historical record. Well, that depends again on what you're calling history and what you're calling the Bible. So, I mean, there's some nuance here that we should be able to do. And this one says the fifth option will do it for me. So there's a non-critical thinker right there. We can dismiss that guy. Equal amount of myth and fact for me. Well, here again, this person, I don't know if I agree that it's equal amount of myth and fact. I don't think that works either, but let's not get nuanced. My whole reason in showing you this is just to show you some public perception of this very interesting text, the Bible. So, while the book of Genesis is inaccurate, well, now that depends on what you're going to base it on. Leonore Leet shows it is 100% accurate and internally consistent from a Kabbalistic perspective. They weren't attempting to put real astronomy or actual cosmology like we in our scientific age want to view the universe and all that. But what they were doing was perfectly internally coherent and logical. And I will show that to you in my Leonore Leet videos. I really need to jump on those and get those out. I will do some in January. I'll do some videos, and maybe I'll even do a live on Leonore Leet. So anyway, and then this person does say, well, let's keep in mind what philosophy is. Yeah, well, Algis Uzdovnis tells us what philosophy is. It is a way for people to explain phenomena they have no concrete answers for. That's a very limited understanding of philosophy altogether. So there's much more to it than just that. So based on that very limited perspective of philosophy, when we look at Genesis, we can see that people as far back as then were asking similar questions to the one we ask today. Very true. Where do we come from? How do we get here? How do these things work? Okay, I can agree with that part. True. They may not have had the tools to answer such questions, or else their tools weren't ours, but they did have the tools and they did provide answers that buoyed their civilization for centuries. You see, this kind of gets into a little bit of a modern bias perspective here that I'm not buying. So, and I'll get into that with other videos. But they use philosophy as a way of doing so. As with every philosophy, time provides means of proving or disproving what is stated. No, it does not. Well, I mean, somewhat, but I don't know. And now that we have more tools at hand, we can have a better idea of what went on. No, you're not. You don't have any clue of what's going on in Genesis if you're not going to use the tool of the Jewish Kabbalah as the makers of the Bible used it. So you see, here comes the modern bias problem. They're saying our tools is history and philosophy, but why no Kabbalah? Why no spirituality? Why no mythology, you see? So this gets sticky. So does this make it complete BS? I would say not, because it teaches us about ourselves. Okay, now that I would agree. So see, already we're getting into a type of an argument that can go on for hundreds of videos, hundreds of hours. But it's a necessary argument if this kind of thing is of any interest to anybody. And I think it still is. I mean, when we look at, well, Bart Ehrman is a famous example. James Tabor is another very excellent example. When you get the biblical scholar William Dever, I've been told to pronounce him Dever, Mark Smith, some of the biblical scholars and archaeologists, when they get involved with it, then yes, there is a lot more to this than meets the eye. So I just wanted to get that out there just so that we could at least get somewhat of a basis of a discussion. Oh, hey, Radio Free Mormon, good to see you. Hope you had a good holiday, and I hope you're going to have a happy new year. Yes, there is a professor in the house. We just can't find him. We're looking for him, though. Absolutely. So, hey, Peter Higgs, welcome, my friend. So, what interests me is the emphasis on just a specific narrow point of view about the biblical record from our modern bias without checks and balances. And again, this comes about because of my study of the Kabbalah. And that makes a significant difference. And I get it, the history of the Kabbalah, as far as it goes, it does come a little later. I get all that. I'll discuss that in my videos. So that's not a big deal. Hey, Milo Hoffman. Yeah, that's one view about aliens coming to Earth and half-freak breeding offspring, Genesis 6, the Nephilim and all that. You know, you got the Zechariah Sitchin and Graham Hancock and people like that. But I don't know if Graham is so big into it, but Eric von Daniken and all those guys. So, but I don't think that's, it's a fun interpretation, but I don't buy it personally, but I might be off. There's other explanations that make much more sense within the linguistic, cultural, ancient Jewish milieu that we have, comparing it to the other cultures of the Mesopotamians and the Babylonians and the Egyptians and all that. But like I say, there are so many different kinds of views. Makes it all very interesting for sure. So the other one that I wanted to share with you is, and I want to see if this will show up on my stream. Did that one change? No, it did not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to go with this one, the StreamYard, and I'm going to hit stop screen, and now I'm going to do the share screen again, and I'm going to get on with this other one. Hang on while I... Is the Bible a historical book? Hold on. Is the Bible... Yeah, that's the one. That's the new one that I want. Yep. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the second. And Milo, don't take that personally what I say. You know, everyone has to have point of views and all. So I'm not mocking you. I'm just saying that's not the route that I particularly take. It's a fun one to talk about, though, and I could make some videos on that. Why not? That would be fun. The Nephilim are always an intriguing characteristic. Zechariah Sitchin's take on him is spectacularly fascinating, even though his biblical scholarship has been questioned. Make no mistake about it. So, oh, thank you, Pat Don Smith. That's very nice of you to say. Yeah, it is fun, Milo. Thank you for having that spirit and attitude. I enjoy that. I appreciate that, because that's what I'm all about. Let's explore. Let's not just throw out anything because we don't like it, right? Hey, Laura Paris, how you doing? So let's get on with this second one here now. Yeah, and this is the one on the Ask Historian Reddit, on the Reddit Ask the Historian. And I thought this was quite interesting. So, is the Bible a historical book? And if it is, does that mean it is historical evidence for the existence of Jesus? And what led to this intriguing question is a Catholic priest told me the Bible is historical and gives evidence for the existence of Jesus. When I told him that there's no firsthand historical evidence of the existence of Jesus, is he right or wrong, and why? Now, I thought the response that I'm going to page to, Talendirg, this is a great response, and I want to read it. The question is much more complex than it first appears. It's not yes or no. So first, we have to understand the nature of the Bible, right? It is a collection of books. Now, get this. I know we roll this off the tip of our tongues as if, well, we already know. Yeah, but whoa. The Bible is a collection of books. It's not a book itself. It's a collection of them. So the weird thing is, it's not the same number of books across Christianity either. There are 66 books in the Protestant canon, but there's 73 for the Roman Catholics, and there's 78 for the Eastern Orthodox. And who knows how many there are for the Mormons with the Joseph Smith translation and the visions of Moses and the Pearl of Great Price and the Book of Abraham. They don't know how to canonize and number that either, but that's not in either the Protestant or the Catholic versions. So nobody's in agreement as to the collection itself. And that's important. And it is varied among other groups. That's why I brought up the Mormon version. So this question about historical, it has to be answered across those books, not for the collection as a whole. I thought, oh, now that could lead to some insights. So secondly, what does historical mean in this context of the Bible being a group of books? Not as a single book, but as a group of books under one cover. For instance, if we took Tolkien, and then we took Joseph Smith's Book of Abraham, and we took a Stephen King novel, and we took Hiram Andris, God, Man, and the Universe, and we took the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and we took one of the Joseph Smith Papers Projects books, and then we took the Philosopher's Secret Fire, and put them all together under one cover, could you say that collection of books is historical just because it exists for the next 2,000 years under one cover? And do all of those books in that collection talk about the same thing? That's kind of what we're looking at with this biblical idea. So what does historical mean? So I suspect, and I don't mean to necessarily project my answer onto you, but I suspect that a lot of people who ask this question work with work with an assumption that a book is historical if it tells you an accurate story of events as they really happened, and that if a book isn't historical, you can disregard it for the purposes of history. So that's one way to look at this, but I really like his analysis coming up because no historian works that way. Now, in one sense, every book is historical. And let's understand this guy's contact. I thought this was interesting. Apuleius' book, The Golden Ass, is a wonderful ancient novel that tells the fanciful fall of Lucius, who goes through several transformations. It's a work of ancient fiction, but it's still historical in the sense that it tells us a great deal about the ancient world in the 2nd century AD. Now, that's a significant nuance that we have to take into account. I thought that was very, very interesting take. So back to the Bible then. Even if you think, say, that the gospel narratives are fiction, they still tell you a great deal about what the authors believed about their historical and cultural setting, about the beliefs of early Christians and Jews, and so on and so forth. So the Bible is a collection of historical documents open to historical inquiry. Now, this to me appears to be sensible. Moreover, those various books, whether they're 66, 73, 78, doesn't matter. They are not all of a piece. They include texts that provide narrative history, though of a particular kind. It also has poetry, letters, proverbs, parables, doctrine, etc. So what does it mean for poetry to be historical, though? Interesting question. So let's turn to the question of Jesus and the historical evidence. I have a long post in the frequently asked questions about the historical evidence for Jesus. In short, the Bible counts as historical evidence. But here I just want to talk about the Gospels. The canonical Gospels are 4 texts written in the mid to late 1st century in the context of communities of early Christians, and they weren't all in the same country either. Then I'm adding that. These communities of Christians, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, their communities were spread over the area. One was in Ephesus, one could have been over in Greece, one could have been in Jerusalem, etc. So they're not all of the same area either. I just want to add that. So they all attest to the existence of those communities indirectly, and this gives us evidence about what those people thought and believed and told each other about the life and death and resurrection as they believed it of a figure of a man called Jesus of Nazareth. That's evidence toward the existence of Jesus. So, side note, when I write evidence here, I mean a piece of data that contributes toward a case for. I don't mean decisive proof that something is true. See, that the idea, the Mormon version, the Christian evangelical version of, well, the Bible is true, etc., that's how they take it. But it's more than that. See, the questions of how accurate or reliable the gospel narratives are, those are a whole set of questions that has its own field of study all by itself. And that's only a part of the puzzle. That's not the whole kip and caboodle either. So, and the responses, of course, range from the super conservative that they are entirely accurate and reliable, which I don't think holds water, through to the super skeptical that they contain nothing of authentic value about a historical Jesus, which I also think is the other end of a really ridiculous spectrum. So the one thing I would stress that must be true is that they are studied historically. In other words, by the methods of history. Now, that makes sense to me. It doesn't help to bring a presupposition such as biblical inerrancy. In other words, that the biblical text contains no errors. That's not a history question. That's a theology stance. If you're interested in theology, wonderful. That's not the issue here. So all of this can be applied to the process of historical inquiry. And this is true even for historians who happen to be Christian believers. So in short, and based on what he says, I like this. Yes, the biblical texts are historical because they provide information about the past. They also provide evidence for the existence of a historical Jesus. But evidence is not the same as proof. And lastly, evidence must be weighed and studied. That's what historical research is all about. And I thought, that is really, that's cool. I like that. I think that's a valid approach in so many respects. So my stance is basically his on this particular issue. What is so amazing here is that, and Barry Richards is talking about Dan Barker's the most unpleasant character in all of fiction. Is a good place to know the character of God in the Abrahamic religions, even though it is highly selective and distorted, and he takes it completely out of context. It is a good read. I read it several times, but I don't agree with it anymore. I used to, but if you only look at the head side of a coin and talk about the head side of the coin and say that's the total reality of the coin, you're never going to be taken seriously. That's the defect, to use an analogy, of Dan Barker's excellent book. But it is a good book to get you thinking about it, and that's the value without question. So, thank you, Barry. That's wonderful. Yeah, and I agree with Doug Vincent, too. Dan McClellan's podcast is very good. And Vega Dog, welcome. And you're right, too. There's no purely objective history with these texts. No, of course not. There's no purely objective anything with any text. That's not the issue. That's not even the way method works. Method itself is subjective, but you have to have it in order to move forward, or you can't budge. So, it's all good. It's all very interesting. That's what makes this discussion so interesting. So let's take a look at one of these other ideas that I thought was, is this on? Yeah, that's the Reddit one. That's the one I wanted. The Reddit one. Okay, so this gentleman here says, I cannot speak to the entirety of the Bible, but certain books are certainly historical and worth reading for their historical context. Okay. As a blanket statement, I'll agree somewhat. The best example is the book of Acts, and here I completely disagree. The book of Acts has been shown to be a complete fabrication by so many different scholars. It's so fabricated with a desired end on purpose. I'm astounded that this person picks Acts. Now, it's true that in Acts, you can find an excellent read to discover elements of Judean and Roman society in the 1st century AD. That's true, but the state of the story as presented really never did happen at all that we know of. So, and then he goes on to Paul's arrest. And the books of the Bible were written in specific historical circumstances, and they're worth reading in light of this. Historians working on ancient history do cite the Bible for various events. The census, though they debate the actual extent as a census of the whole world is absurd, there is certainly historical evidence for Jesus in the Bible. That's not the question. The question is there historical evidence of Jesus? And can that be confirmed outside the Bible? So that's interesting. Here, this gentleman says, or lady, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, the Bible is not a historical book, but it contains historical books. Remember, it is a library, kind of like that mash of books I said if we would put together, and in 2,000 years, people only had that. So the current academic consensus is that Jesus was a real person who can be historically verified to exist. So, and again, the Bible is 66 books, not just one. In the New Testament, you have the Gospels, the Acts, the Epistles, the Revelation of John. It's an apocalyptic prophecy. It's not history, but it could very well be an allegory for Roman politics. The epistles are letters primarily from Paul to churches in the various cities, and I might add communities. Romans is to the Galatians, and Galatians in the Galatians. The Gospel and Acts fit the definition of history because they describe past events that the authors considered to be factual. See, non-canonical Gospels are not necessarily works of history. For example, the Gospel of Thomas is just a collection of sayings. It's not describing where Jesus went, any kind of a miracle he performed, etc. Thomas is more of a philosophical Jesus. As such, it's not a history book. But does that mean it has no value and has no truth? Absolutely not. History is one of the criteria, but it's not the only one to look for. That's what I would say. So it's very interesting. And I like this, like all primary sources, works of history, they can be examined for their hysterical for their historical validity in comparison with other sources. Of course, yes. And two of the most independent sources are Tacitus' Annals of History and Josephus's Antiquities. Both of these were written shortly after the Gospels. And again, since the New Testament was not compiled as a single collection for centuries later, and there are partial manuscripts of the epistles and the Gospels, and they had previously existed as independent documents, I would argue that the information in the earlier epistles, which were written roughly contemporaneous with the events described in Acts, are decent sources to corroborate the Gospel and Acts. Okay, this is not to say that the events described within are true from a religious standpoint. And in some respects, this is how the Mormon Church treats it. They want it to be true. They want it to have actually happened so that they can say, see, they had miracles and they had prophecies and they had the laying on of the hands and baptism for the dead and on and on and on. You know, 1 Corinthians 15:29 and that whole yarn. All of this, yes, and there really was a guy named Jesus who taught a new religion. He got crucified and so on and so forth. But is the mixture of the theological, this is true, being married to the historical, then that means it actually happened the way the Bible says it did. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, because we now know, thanks to the work of William Dever, among others, and other archaeologists, that we may find names. I mean, we know Pilate was a genuine Roman leader. That's historical. But that does not mean the story of Pilate and Jesus in the New Testament happened the way the Gospels say, because we know there's no way in hell they could have happened that way. That is impossible, because Pilate was not a pushover mama's boy like the Gospels try to portray him. And so this is kind of the stickiness of studying the historical when you marry it with the theological, so that you can come out with being able to say, I know this is true. You see how that works. Oh, thank you, you guys. Thank you, Vega Dog. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate your support. Thank you, Doug Vincent. I appreciate your support as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hattie the Batty. I know who you are. Happy New Year to you, you wonderful woman. Appreciate you. Oh, you're awesome. Okay, so I hope I'm not, oh, thank you, Radio Free Mormon. He says that was very well put. I hope I'm not putting you off, but there are There isn't, see, this is part of the issue that I have with the church. I mean, I think we all do. I had it when I was involved in the church. Uh, this idea that there is only one way to see the scripture. There's only one way to understand the scripture to please God. And so, when they put it that way, you're going to feel guilty as all get out if you don't believe it the way God wants you to believe it. Now, who gets to tell you that? The brethren, of course. So what they're doing is they're elevating their interpretation and view and understanding, their melding of theology with history together as the only basis for truth. Therefore, they're similar to God. And that's bunk. I can't go that way anymore, and neither should anyone else. That's just ridiculous. Sincerely. I'm not trying to mock the brethren, but there isn't just a single approach to this. See, this plurality, this this context of, it's too confusing though. Backyard professor. I want the gospel to be simple. Well, happy for you. Good luck with that. That's like saying, well, I want life to be simple. Well, good luck with that. I want everything to be a bed of roses, and I want it to just go smooth, and I want to be able to bear my testimony and feel that burning in the boot. Good luck with all of that. It's time to get out of kindergarten. And I'm so sorry for my rude bluntness, but that's how I feel about that take. That's just the way it is. So anyway. Oh, Peter Higgs, that would be fun. I would love to teach a Sunday school class with Radio Free Mormon. We could do a 1-2 bang up. We need to do some more videos together. Those were bang ups too. That's a lot of fun to work with him. So that's essentially what I wanted to get across tonight. Is the scholars view the Bible with a much more nuanced view because, of course, they're spending their entire lives on it. It's like the chess grandmasters. They view chess a lot differently than I do because I'm nowhere near them, and yet I can play the game and do okay in my level. But that doesn't mean my level is true, and don't expand and change my approach to the game of chess. Because if I stay rigid where I am right now, I will never improve. Well, okay, I would propose that's a decent analogy to this idea of studying someone's sacred scriptures. It doesn't matter which group you belong to. Look, there's lots of groups out there with lots of sacred texts, right? Naturally, we're in the Western part of the world. Well, the main text in the West is the Bible, so naturally we emphasize that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but realize it's not the only game in town, and that might shock some people, but that's the way it is. It's not the only game in town. There are lots of ancient sacred texts that the vast majority of us will remain ignorant of throughout the rest of our entire lives, thinking we have the only true truth and light and knowledge. And that's why we were never more wrong. The downside of all of this, which really sucks, and I've lamented this before, but we can't live long enough to study it all either. So ignorance is our lot. That's my point. We can't. I'm sorry to be so blunt about the reality, but you and I are going to remain so ignorant of so much. So a little humility is called for. That's all I'm saying. In the meantime, we can enjoy learning what we're capable and able of doing without condemning everyone else to hell because they see something different, or to a lower kingdom of glory, thinking we're still doing them a favor. Well, we're not sending you to hell. We're just sending you to a lower kingdom of glory where you can't procreate and have sex like we're going to in the celestial kingdom with our wives. 6 of one, half a dozen of another, This whole theme of afterlife, punishment, and glory. I'm, it's like my short tonight, and I'll tell it here for your guys' sake, so you don't have to watch the short. Hey, Rebecca Biblioteca, welcome. Am I ambivalent on this? Well, yes and no. I'm ambivalent because there's no other way to be. Oh, I'm seeing someone mention my good friend. Have you read the late Dr. Michael Heiser's Unseen Realm? Not totally yet. I've started it, but I have not read it all the way through yet. I intend to. He was kind enough to send me his doctoral dissertation on the Council of the Gods, and it's some of the most juicy, fabulous analysis of the ancient Hebrew in the Old Testament I have ever read. I also enjoyed the debate he had with David Bokovoy in the Farms Review of Books. That is worth looking at. So that's really fun stuff. Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Rebecca Biblioteca. Their Mormonish is really kicking out some good crap, as Radio Free Mormon and Bill Real are on Mormonism Live and the Radio Free Mormon podcast. You guys are so much bigger and grander than I am that it's awesome to be able to have someone so cool to look up to. Yes, let me give a quick shout out right now, Rebecca Biblioteca. Thank you. 7:30 tonight, right after this podcast, you guys need to scoot over there to Mormon News Roundup. They're going to do a top 10 stories of the year, which is going to be super fun, especially if they're taking it from Dr. Scratch's ideas off the Shades message board. That's some fun stuff. So, yeah. Good stuff to watch after this boring podcast. Absolutely. Happy New Year, Rebecca Biblioteca. Oh, Sojourner's Path. Thank you for showing up. Yep. So, okay, hey, Marty McFly. Whoa, life was much simpler in the 50s. Yeah, Marty. Come on, McFly. Gosh, I love that show, Back to the Future. That's one I want to watch again. That was cool. That was a great series, wasn't it? That was a fun series. You can't help but love Michael J. Fox. So, okay, so I don't have a lot more than that. I mean, I do. This is a non-ending. We could go on for years on this subject, just like they've been doing. And you always find that you get into more and more nuance the deeper you go. Now, this is a very significant issue. This is why the church, and this is so unfortunate, but this is why the church does not want intelligent inquiry into their scriptures. I will repeat that. They do not want that. And the reason is obvious. Because what they're saying is a small trickle compared to the tidal wave of potential views that are every bit as valid and potentially more enlightening than the silly little trickle they give you as the truth. And it is that trickle of which you are to gain a testimony of, and don't worry about all the rest. None of that is necessary for your salvation. Come on. Is it any wonder we call this brainwashing? They've just narrowed it down to kindergarten pap and pablum of one view, and even that one's not very good. compared to when you begin to compare, cross-check, and cross-reference 200 other nuances and put all them together, it's like blowing air in the balloon. What they're doing is they're giving you a limp little balloon and they're saying, this is the true balloon. Don't blow in it, just take it like it is. But if you I wish I had a balloon for an analogy, right? If you blow it up and it grows and grows, you have a greater, bigger, better context of the balloon. Yeah, right. The balloon becomes more real, more enjoyable, more interesting, instead of just sitting there flat and moving around without any air in it. The church does a bad job in that respect, in not giving us the nuances. And it's even heinous. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm going to call it the ace of spades, the ace of spades. It's heinous on the church's part to call that nuance or some other nuance apostate. That just makes you cringe, and it shuts down the discussion. It shuts down any desire to learn. Oh, I don't want to be apostate. I want to be a true member of the covenant path. Oh, well, then you'll read our interpretation and believe that, because that's the truth. We get that by revelation. I seriously have to question that these days, because the other nuanced views of the scripture also make just as much sense, if not more, especially when we kind of look under the rug into the Hebrew and the Greek nuances and ideas and really do get to the cultural settings of all of the other nations that they were involved in: the Greeks, the Macedonians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Assyrians, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians. There's so much more that makes even better sense, but it doesn't reflect Mormonism, you see. And the ideology of Mormonism is we are a restoration of what was had anciently. But there's so much that was had anciently that Mormons can't stand and they hate. You want a really powerful example? Male and female temple prostitutes in the ancient worship in the temples. That wasn't restored. How about the ancient goddess, the mother goddess, who was symbolized by one of the ancient cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant, while the other one symbolized God, the male, and they were depicted when Israel was righteous. The cherubim came together and they were depicted in the sex act. Raphael Patai, a very good and prominent Jewish scholar, and Eugene Sage, a Mormon scholar of good standing and good repute, have both written entire texts on this subject. But does Joseph Smith Endowment have any iconography such as that? Does it have any doctrinal and theological teachings of that? That would terrify the brethren who are too old to get it up in the first place, wouldn't it? Of course it would. Yet that's what was had anciently. If you're going to claim to be a restoration of the full picture, then what are you leaving out the mother goddess for and her position? You see, there's the downside of that teaching. The other downside is, how come you're ignoring so much of what the ancient religion, and I mean like Judaism, had, that you refuse to put in because it doesn't match your agenda? In other words, what I'm saying is Joseph Smith was careful to select, to pick and choose. Yes, let's include that. No, let's not include that. And if it wasn't Joseph Smith, it was someone after him who did that, so that it fits a preconceived agenda of the power-hungry Mormon leadership now, because it makes them a lot of money. There's your problem. That's the issue. A restoration, man, you can poke holes in that till the day is long. But we know the majority of the endowment is, a lot of it is Freemasonry, not ancient Judaism and early Christianity. And you can't even say that as a legitimate theme anymore because of the scholarship that their own scholars at BYU have discovered. There is no such thing as ancient Judaism or early Christianity. There is only the plural. There were so many different, diverse, doctrinally differentiated groups of Jews and Christians that you can only call it early Christianities. There never was a singular Judaism any more than a singular Christianity. So, how do you know which one you're restoring? They don't. And then they always have the fallback. Well, Jesus revealed it to us. Which Jesus? There's not just one of him either. You see, this gets nuanced very, very quickly. And that's why the church doesn't want people of intelligence. I mean, there is. What do you think the September 6th was all about? The excommunication of the September 6th. What do you think the excommunication of John Dehlin is all about? What do you think the excommunication of Bill Reel was all about? What do you think the excommunication of Kate Kelly was all about? What do you think the excommunication of Samuel? I mean, come on. Come on. I think we can see the writing on the wall. Thinkers are not welcome at the church. At the head of every door outside on a Mormon church and temple needs to be a plaque engraven in pure gold that says, thinkers are not welcome. Stay outside, because that's how they act. Hey, Eugene. Yeah, you're right. In some respects, I did use my title as clickbait somewhat. I plead guilty. The Bible hasn't lost credibility. In so many regards, I completely agree with you. It is the interpretations of the Bible that have lost credibility. I wanted, thank you for bringing that up, Eugene. Yes, sir, because that's the key. What has happened is some of the interpretations have fallen by the wayside, but the Bible hasn't. I mean, it hasn't. It's still in all the bookstores, it's in everybody's home, etc. So I'm not just imagining that. That's the fact. I've got several copies of the Bible in very different languages: Hebrew, Greek, German, French, over there on my bookshelf. It's still being translated in hundreds of languages. So, yeah, good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. Brian Anderson. Depends on who. Can't lose credibility if it's never had it, but it has. See, here's where you're a little bit short-sighted, my friend. The Bible has been the most influential book in the Western world that there is. All you have to do is read the history. I mean, it's still influential right now in United States politics, which is so unfortunate. But so, don't put blinders on. You can't project your view onto the world and say, this is the reality. It's your reality. And more power to you, true. So, and then again, it depends on what you mean by credibility too. So, yeah, see, this goes off into all kinds of rabbit holes, and this is what the churches don't want. That's why they don't make intelligent people feel welcome. I get it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Mormons who really take umbrage with me. They're going to really yell at me and say, oh, you're just biased. You're closed-minded. You're just a fickle anti-Mormon, and you're so angry. Oh, you're so angry. They love to throw that accusation out. Well, I got to admit, there are some times when I do get very angry. They've got a point. I'm angry, and sometimes I get downright pissed, and maybe you'd better change and do something about it so that you quit pissing everyone off. There is that approach, right? But tonight, I'm not angry. Tonight, I'm very happy to have been able to share an hour with you. I've been going on for an hour now. Hey, Mr. Ether, welcome. Oh, Radio Free Mormon, you're too nice. Right, Patty Cake. Patty Cake says, yeah, my reality is better than your reality. Yeah. When people have that approach, that leads to wars. And that's so unfortunate because your reality is not better than my reality. It's different. But that's not a crime. That doesn't mean someone's righteous and someone's wicked. You see how the religions have played it so that they can manipulate us. Yeah. That's the one thing I really don't like about yeah, I really don't like that about organized religion. I really don't. So but if the stories are not credible, what do you mean the stories aren't credible? Maybe they're not meant to be history. The parables are not credible as history, but they are simply the most profound stuff in all of the New Testament. So, see what I mean? Depends on what your assumption is of what they should be. Why do we assume they should be historical? That's our bias. So, yeah, you get into a lot of nuance like that, don't you? Right? So, okay. All right, you guys. Gosh dang it. I want to take the time to say thank you all for being my friends. Thank you all for being my audience. I appreciate all your love and support financially, morally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, psychically, and psychodelically. It's fun to think through stuff with people. It's fun to have a variety of approaches. It's fun to have a variety of views, and it's fun to be able to work them out without killing each other and still come out as really good and best friends, because that's what it's all about. Every one of us are partial and finite. I say that pretty often in a lot of my videos, but that's because that's the fact. We simply don't see the whole picture yet. We're not going to in this life. So a little bit of humiliation, humility, and calm is what is called for if someone doesn't quite think like you do. It's not the end of the world. You can actually learn something together from that. So anyway, oh, you're very kind, Patty Cake. Yes, Happy New Year to you too, all of you. Carrie is hysterical, not historical. Hey, no, that's not true. I was on a podcast last week with Summer Rain and Gene Hudson, and they said that people were saying, "Hey, it's kind of nice to see a calm BYP." So I hope tonight I've been a lot calmer. This could have went really wild, but it didn't, and I'm very glad for it. Oh, thank you. Yes, we'll catch up to you all next year. I'll be here again next Sunday. So yeah, I'm gonna bug out and I'm gonna go have a nice dinner for New Year's, and I hope the best for every one of you. Hopefully, we'll all see each other again next year over and over and over and over again, not only on the internet, on the YouTube, but in person. That'd be fun to do some get togethers. So, we've got a lot of Thrive events we want to go to and all sorts of fun stuff. So, I will see you all soon. Remember, be good, do well, make lots of friends. Keep smiling. It's my favorite thing to do because it really does make people wonder, what is he or she up to? Something's going on. It's so fun to do that. I'll catch up to you guys soon. Love y'all. I gotta go. Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back. And so will Johann Sebastian.